All right, let's talk about The Fall Guy, starring Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, in a film based on an 80s television series of the same name that I have always known of, but I don't recall ever actually seeing. So this is not something that was nostalgic for me, and I'm unfortunately not going to be the person who can answer whether this respects the Fall Guy name and that original IP or shits all over it. So, sorry. um, but this film follows Ryan Gosling's character, who is a Hollywood stunt man, stunt double, who has retired, but gets called out of retirement with the promise of going to work on a film for a director who happens to be a woman that he had a romantic relationship with, and it was unresolved. So he's pretty keen to do this. And once back on set and in front of the camera again, doing his stunts, mystery ensues. And the star of the film that they're making, and who he is stunt doubling for, has gone missing. And nobody knows where he is, what has happened, and essentially he must be found so that the movie can be completed. Um, I would consider this movie an action rom-com. It has a pretty heavy, like, romantic element to it, and I thought that worked pretty well for the most part. I think Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt had great chemistry together. They were so fun to watch on screen. They're so funny, both of them, I think. I think she's underrated sometimes as a comedic actress. The first time I recall ever seeing her was in The Devil Wears Prada, and this bitch goes, I'm just one stomach flew away from my goal weight. And I can't tell you how many times I have said that shit and she just was so perfect in that movie because she is hilarious. And while I don't find this film hilarious, it is funny, and it's sweet, and it's cute. And I really mostly found the romantic comedy portion of this a plus. It's where we get into the mystery portion where he is tasked with finding this actor who has gone missing, that this movie, I wouldn't say fell apart, but just didn't really take me with it. I found that entire storyline part of it to be just really uninteresting, unfortunately. Um, it's unnecessarily sort of convoluted. It's silly, not in a good way, in my opinion. And honestly, and I don't throw this word around lightly, a little bit boring. I did not find this movie boring as a whole. I just would have liked to have had a much more interesting mystery to follow. Um, the action in this movie, I think, is really solid. It's directed by David Leitch, whose film Atomic Blonde I love. It's an exercise in style over substance, for sure, but it's a style that I really love, and I've seen that movie a number of times. I really, really enjoy it. Deadpool 2, which he also directed, it was fine. I liked the first one way better. Deadpool 2 just didn't reach those heights for me. And then his last film, Bullet Train, I thought was pretty good. And here, the stunts look amazing. I mean, he was a Hollywood stuntman himself who has gone on to direct film. And, I mean, they look great. You can tell that he cares about that line of work. And there's a lot of kind of sentimentality toward that job in this movie. And I thought that was really nice. But I guess I felt a little bit let down by the action overall. I didn't I kind of expected a film directed by a former stuntman about stunt people and a stunt person to, like, really go so hard. And there aren't any, like, big action sequences that, like, really truly stood out to me. They all look great. The movie looks expensive. So you can tell it was funded for sure. But it just all just came across as a little bit meh to me. I mean, overall, I thought the movie was entertaining enough. I think this would make a great date movie. There's nothing offensive here to anyone. It's not like hyper violent. It's rated PG-13. And with the romantic comedy element and the action side of it, I think it would appeal to a pretty broad number of people. To even to people who don't care for romantic comedy, and then and the vice versa, romantic comedy people who don't really care for action. It's just sort of like a breezy, crowd pleasing summer flick, and I do consider this sort of like the first movie of like the summer movie season. Um, so do I recommend The Fall Guy? Mildly. Um, like I said, there are worse ways that you can spend 2 hours. That's for sure. But there are a lot better ways to that you can. And if you just want to shut your brain off and really not think about anything for a little while and just float along and just kind of mindlessly watch something, I think this is okay. Um, but is something that like I probably just a couple of few days from now, like I won't even remember that I went to see it. It's just there's nothing about it that is going to stick with me. Um, and yeah, I feel a little bit disappointed to say that because I do like Ryan Gosling. I think he's very charming. I think he's quite funny. I think he can be a little bit samey sometimes in all of his roles. But I generally like that person that he kind of always is. And then Emily Blunt, I love. And while there's, like I said, nothing offensive here, it's just sadly just so meh. Entertaining enough, but not memorable.